everybody, and welcome to the show, Around the Nation, right here in TOT Nation. I'm your host, Jeff Waldorf. Welcome to another exciting edition of What the Fuck is Going On in the World. Hey, I'm here to tell you. Actually, what's going on with the Trump administration, we've got, of course, more Donald Jr. We also have some other stuff. Got an interesting poll, or a group of poll. We have Republicans, of course, being Republicans and being incredibly corrupt. That's fun. And then we have a very strange article about sandwiches. Sandwiches? No, you'll see. You'll love this. I think you'll enjoy that article where basically I break down a pretty ridiculous argument. At least, yeah. We'll get to that. So, and then, of course, we've got a story from yesterday that we didn't get to as well. So lots of stuff here on the show today. Before I get into it, I want to, of course, thank the patrons, patreon.com/TYTNation. Thank you for supporting us, independent progressive media. Thank you, thank you. Let me give you some shout-outs to people who support us. I think I left off with Nancy Kohler, Sammy Osborne, Deborah Leahy, we have Thomas Geiger, Angela Castanieto, Elizabeth Ottman, Matthew Davis, Greg Engelbrett, not Matthew Davis, Kisa Powell, Frank, Billy Martell, Clue, Elena Des Cifuentes, Barry Muhammad, Jeffrey Johnson, and Virginia Fast. So thank you. All of those who support us on Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation. Thank you so much. All right. Now, before I get into our major stories of the day, I do want to remind everybody, it's the last day. It's a very, very, very important day for net neutrality. So if you haven't left a comment on the FCC website, I believe that you still have today to do it. So if you haven't went there yet, make sure. So very, very important to save net neutrality, or at least make sure Ajit Pai gets a piece of your mind. Respectfully, of course. You don't want to be flagged as a bot. So, with that, let's move on. Let's get into the show. And do we have no audio today? Weird. I'm getting reports of some without audio, but others with audio, so that's weird. But I think everything seems to be good on my end, as far as I know. So, anyway, let's move on. Let's go into the first story here. A little good news story to start out the day. Another day, another poll affirming that, of course, Bernie Sanders is indeed the most popular politician in America. He's actually the most popular senator in America now. Now, on July 11th, Morning Consult had released a poll naming Senator Bernie Sanders as the most popular politician in the Senate with a 75% approval rating. Now, he held a 6% lead over the next runner-up, Senator Brian Schatz. Now, the rankings were based on over 140,000 interviews conducted between April 1st and June 18th of 2017. So everybody looks at the Senate like, our favorite guy, Bernie Sanders. Okay. Now, this poll, of course, follows a lot of others, like the survey conducted by Fox News back in March that found similar results. Hey, he's got a super high approval rating. He actually received the highest favorability rating of any nationally known politician at 61%. Now, the runner-up on that one was Vice President Mike Pence, who was at a 47% approval rating because, look, the guy hasn't been doing a whole lot. He's just been kind of hanging back in the shadows, not really doing a whole lot in the forefront. So, and I'm pretty sure he's shining up his presidential placard or something like that, saying, oh, one of these days, when Trump's gone, I'm going to take over. I'm going to take over. Hope not, because he's actually be more dangerous than Donald Trump. So that's why I'm not in the impeachment wagon. That, and of course, we don't really have anything to impeach Donald Trump on. But anyway, now more polls. A Harvard-Harris survey conducted on April of 2017 also confirmed that, again, Bernie Sanders, most popular politician, he received a 57% favorability rating, while Hillary Clinton only received a 42% favorability rating in the same poll. Interesting. Now, in April 2017, PolitiFact also rated the claim that Sanders is the most popular politician in the country as mostly true. So, why is that? Why do we have all these different polls that are saying essentially the same thing like Bernie Sanders, the guy who lost to Hillary Clinton, is still the most popular politician in America? You would think that the most popular politician would have actually be the person who had won. No, that's not true. In fact, the person who had won ultimately both the Democratic nomination and the person who won the presidency on the Republican side, they're actually two of the least favorable people in America right now. People hate both of them, both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Now, Sanders has gained significant popularity among voters who feel underrepresented by either party. So that makes sense. And it's also because there are a lot of millennials that have increased their activism, that have actually gotten involved in politics. So they're actually now being represented. Now, during the primary, of course, it's no surprise that Bernie Sanders received a lot of support from millennials. More millennials support than both Clinton and Trump combined against across every different racial demographic. So you can't just say, oh, you know, those white Bernie bros, the younger guys, those are the ones who supported Bernie Sanders. No, that's not true. You had a coalition of young millennial African Americans and Latinos and Asians. He's actually more popular among those demographics than he is with young white bros. He's got a lot of intersectionality. Now, and since, of course, Clinton's lost to Trump, Clinton, of course, disappeared in the woods. Then she recently came back and said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to raise a whole lot of money so we can keep doing the same thing that we did before and the same strategy that I used when I lost to Donald Trump. Super smart. While Sanders was out there, of course, saying, no, we're going to fight against Donald Trump. But you know what? We're also going to fight for progressive policies. You know, stuff like a living wage, which is very popular, Medicare for all, more popular than ever, tuition-free education, opposition to free trade deals, and other issues progressives have been fighting for. I know, strange. You would actually go and take popular positions and popular policies and actually push them. What a radical. What a radical idea. Amazing. Now, all of these polls, of course, that we're seeing, look, all these polls are why we're seeing the establishment push back so hard to try to smear Bernie Sanders. Now, let's, and we've talked about this before, that that probe into, the Burlington College thing in Vermont, trying to smear both Bernie and Jane Sanders. Like, oh, you've got bank fraud and bad loans, and you ran that college into the ground, Jane Sanders. And look, this whole thing was started from basically hearsay from Republican Trump operatives. They claim that she perpetrated bank fraud, Jane Sanders, and that Bernie Sanders, what's more, he used his position in Congress to push for those loans, to pressure that bank. Now, anybody who knows Bernie Sanders and knows what this guy is about immediately smells bullshit. Like, oh, wait, you're saying that Bernie Sanders put political pressure on a bank? Really? Use his position of authority to try and pressure a bank? That is so uncharacteristically, like, it's not Bernie Sanders. That is not who this guy is. So you see charges like that and you're like, no, that's ridiculous. And furthermore, again, it comes from one of Donald Trump's campaign managers in Vermont. His campaign chair. So, no, of course, it's bullshit. But this is, look, this is a lot of what these things are is just smears against Bernie Sanders because, again, they can't stand his popularity. I mean, look, again, with the uncharacteristic smearing of Bernie Sanders, you got to remember, this is a guy who went super soft on Hillary during the campaign. The problem with Bernie Sanders is that he's too nice to people. He's not aggressive enough. And I pointed that out before. So again, these smears are absolutely ridiculous, but it does show how scared the Republicans are and how scared the establishment is of Bernie Sanders. I mean, look, we've seen establishment Democrats, for example, attack him and his policies. For example, like single payer in California, right? Now, single payer was killed by somebody who was funded by the health insurance lobby. You also have Nancy Pelosi, who thinks, no, we're not ready for health care. And she refuses to step down despite having a record of losing on essentially everything, saying, no, you guys don't understand. I'm like the Michael Jordan of fundraising. Really, explain how the DNC is $1.9 million in debt and has had one of the lowest fundraising hauls since 2003. No, but she says, guys, I'm worth the trouble. No, you're not. You're incredibly unpopular. And now you have Hillary Clinton out there with her super PAC. And that are going to fund candidates. And you have people like Andrew Cuomo being pushed by the establishment to run for 2020. They're scared. They want to run everybody but Bernie Sanders. Not because he would lose, but because they're afraid that he would institute real change. And they can't stand it. Don't rock my boat. You got your boat over there. Don't rock mine. Well, too bad. We're not only going to rock the boat, we're going to capsize it. Again, they're super, super afraid. And look, the voters know that, and that's why the voters are behind him. But see, only a party who is so invested in the donors, invested in those big money interests, would try to destroy the most popular politician in America instead of run him against another party that is also deeply unpopular. And by the way, a party whom he would maul if given the chance. And instead, we have people, partisan hacks over there like Joanne Reed and other establishment folks saying, Bernie Sanders, he doesn't represent us. He's not even a Democrat. He's not even a Democrat. You know what the Democrats should do is that they should embrace him and his message and decide to run on his policies instead of continuing to fight him and ensure, of course, their eventual destruction as a party. And now, if that happens, if they don't run him, if they continue to go on their same course, well, let's hope that at least that when that party falls, that there is something strong enough left to take on the Republicans and actually start to win. Okay, anyway. There's that. Now let's go to Trump Jr. That's probably one of the worst Photoshop jobs I've ever done, but okay. Gotta do what you gotta do, man. Gotta do what you gotta do. Now, since the news broke that Donald Trump Jr. went to a meeting with a Russian lawyer because he thought he could dig up dirt on Hillary Clinton, the Trump administration has been working steadily to refute any charges of wrongdoing. No, well, this, we just went and did some opposition research. This is normal. Not really a big deal. We didn't do anything wrong. You know what? The Democrats, it's just a witch hunt. I mean, just ignore it. Everything's going to be fine. However, inside the White House, the Trump aides, well, they're actually flipping the fuck out. Very interesting. Now, I want to give you some context into actually exactly what's going on. Because since I last reported on this, there were new developments. Now, yesterday, Donald Jr. released his own emails in advance of a New York Times report, who planned on releasing those emails later that day. So, look, the New York Times already had those emails in possession. So they're like, we're going to publish these. Donald Trump Jr. is like, whoa, wait a minute, whoa. Give us some time, and we'll figure out what to do. And then we're going to release the emails. Oops, they're out there. So now they're like, well, we got out there first. Also, we could claim that we're transparent. We have nothing to hide. Look at us. We're such good stand-up people. Wonderful. Now, odds are he didn't come up with the plan because the same day he decided, I'm in trouble. I'm going to lawyer up. Okay. So for that, now I go to the New York Times. Now, the emails were between him and Rob Goldstone, who offered to connect Don Jr. to a Russian government attorney who could relay, quote, very high level and sensitive information as part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. Now, these are from the emails, okay? Now, Goldstone writes, this is obviously very high level and sensitive information, but is part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. Helped along by Arison Emrin, of course, Amon. Arison Amon being a Russian pop star and his father, a Kremlin-connected oligarch. So look, I don't think any of that should be surprising. We kind of figured that Trump was more favored by Russia. Okay. Now, I've always been skeptical of them, of course, of them doing things like hacking. Again, we don't know where the WikiLeaks emails came from. So if you're out there saying, no, the Russians stole the DNC emails, well, we don't know that for sure. We don't have the evidence to back that up. I got that, right? And I think we understand that. A lot of us who are very skeptical can say, okay, look, we don't know if the Russians had actually hacked these emails and then released them to WikiLeaks. We don't have the evidence for that. However, these emails do show evidence, and this was before the WikiLeaks came out, by the way, and before the DNC was breached. We know that the Russians, or at least this Russian lawyer, was apparently in support of Donald Trump's aims. Okay, or at least we know that the Russian government at least was in support of Trump. So, okay, anyway. Now, I never thought of course, highly of Trump's intelligence, but again, surely he would not be open to working together with a foreign government in order to help his father win an election, right? Trump Jr. So, well, let's see his response, right? This is from the emails. If it's what you say, I love it. Well, that's pretty simple. Here's this contact saying, hey, we got contact by some Russian people who have some information and they would like to set up a meeting. These are, of course, and I'm going to read this again. This is someone who had very high level and sensitive information as part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. That's what Rob Goldstone wrote. This is very high level and sensitive information, but as part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. Again, not my words, in the emails. Don Jr.'s own emails. What are you going to do? Say that they're fake news? No, that's not fake news. These are real. These are their emails. That's what they said. Now, look, he could be wrong in saying that, well, actually, they're not supported. They're not from the Russian government. After all, oops. But they were saying that they were. So Rob Goldstone is saying, from what I understand, this is from the Russian government. And Donald Trump Jr.'s response is, if it's what you say, I love it. So, again, those are facts. Okay, this is what's going on. This is for real. Okay. Now, he forwarded those emails to campaign chief Paul Manafort and Jared Kushner. Now, that meeting happened, nothing came of it, right? In fact, when she started talking about the Majinsky stuff and the adoption, Donald Trump Jr. was rather annoyed. Like, oh, I'm not interested in this. Like, I thought you would say you were going to give me some dirt. I thought you had dirt on Hillary. You said you were going to give me dirt on Hillary. All we're doing is talking about policy. Well, fuck. I don't care about that. In his words, he was, quote, agitated by it. So there's your context, right? So he goes to this meeting. He's set up by a friend with someone they both knew was at least Russian, a Russian lawyer, and supposedly had Russian documents linking Hillary Clinton and the DNC getting funded by Russians. So this isn't related to WikiLeaks, and which, by the way, these documents, if they were true, which they're not, would have actually been stolen. And so he finds out there are no documents there, and he gets annoyed, he leaves. Okay. So at the very least, we know from his own admissions that, yes, he would like to work with anybody who has opposition research, including a foreign government, to help his dad win an election. Now, that really fits in with the Trump, I want to win at all costs mentality. Now remember, Goldstone in the emails described this as official documents and information that would incriminate Hillary Clinton and her dealings with Russia and would be very useful to her father. And so this was presented as official government dirt on Hillary. And so, look, would this have been collusion? Yes. Is collusion criminal? Actually, no. So this is not, meeting with this is not criminal. So let's get that out of the way. Now, there's an issue with it. It's obviously an ethical issue with this, right? And obviously, and we'll get into what this could actually mean in this. And actually, this is according to a legal expert like Paul Butler. Now, he's a law professor at Georgetown University. Now, he says this is definitely compelling evidence of collusion, but collusion itself is not a crime. Now, potential crimes could include conspiracy if hacking emails was part of the plan, which we don't know, which that wasn't discussed at all. So if you're going to pin criminality on Donald Trump Jr., well, from these emails, they don't show any criminality. And not only that, the more likely charge would actually be soliciting a foreign national for a campaign contribution. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, campaign contribution? What? How is this a campaign contribution? Well, any information, any opposition research would have had a dollar amount to it. You would have to pay for opposition research for anything that you can't freely Google. So, if you get on Google, you find some dirt on Hillary, well, or somebody, goes in and Googles dirt on Hillary and says, hey, Trump campaign, I found some shit on Hillary. That wouldn't be considered a campaign contribution. It just wouldn't, because it's freely available information. However, if they did have something on Hillary Clinton that was incriminating, and they decided, hey, we're going to give this to you, that would be considered a campaign contribution, because it's not information you can find freely on the internet. So, okay, that's fair. Now, again, if you're getting information from a foreign government that has a dollar amount attached to it, or something that you would charge for, then that itself is a crime. It's a violation of getting a campaign contribution from an outside source. So there's an issue here, okay? Now, there's a lot of context to that story. Obviously, it's very, very involved, but I want to get to the fun stuff. I want to get to how the White House is reacting. For that, I go to the Beast. Quote, "This is some of all fear stuff. It's all we've been dreading," said one White House official who is now exploring the possibility of retaining an attorney, a step described as purely precautionary. Not only that, but as previously reported, opinion of Trump's eldest son among some of Trump's senior aides, both past and present, is vanishingly low. So this is a guy who's so dumb, who messes up so much, that people in the White House actually have an interesting little nickname for him. Since the campaign, a popular behind his back nickname for Trump Jr. among these advisors has been Fredo, referring to Fredo Corleone, the insecure and weak failure of a son in the Godfather series who ends up causing major damage to the family. Oops. Oh, sad Fredo. Sad, sad. Look, no wonder why Ivanka Trump is in the position that she is. She's actually competent. She's actually one of the smarter kids. Though, I would actually put Tiffany at number 1. Why? Because she's smart enough to stay away from all of this. Just saying. Now, over the past week, one senior White House official and a former Trump campaign both independently and bluntly described the president's son as an idiot. One who played a role in the campaign and Trump's political rise simply because he shares the same DNA. So again, they're not happy inside the White House with Donald Trump Jr. Not happy at all. And look, in trying to, when this broke, it actually took a long time for even Donald Trump to defend him, his own son. On Monday morning, after much of the news had already broken, Donald Trump made sure to tweet about his daughter Ivanka, Clinton's daughter Chelsea, James Comey, and even some Fox and Friends clips. As of noon on Tuesday, he had yet to tweet out a single defense of his eldest son. Now, of course, look, that's changed. Because he had came out and said, "Oh, my son, he released all the emails. What a stand-up guy. What a great guy, Donald Trump Jr." Look, okay. So, look, the whole situation here is, look, Donald Trump Jr. is not a smart guy. It's not a smart move. However, he knew that his dad wanted to win at all costs, so they don't care where they get their information, and even if it had been stolen, that information. So, it's not necessarily, what he did was not necessarily a criminal act. It's still stupid. And it still shows you who the Trumps really are. They don't see consequences for their actions. Ever. And they end up doing things because they never get any consequences. They end up doing things that are ethically wrong in order to get an advantage. Well, that's who the Trumps are. They never have consequences, and I'm not convinced that there are going to be any consequences here because of how corrupt our system is. And, of course, to the nature of what he actually did. Now, that's, of course, for any investigators to figure out. And if this happens to go any further, if they do actually find some sort of way to get him on, oh, yeah, you ended up getting a campaign contribution from a foreign national, so we're going to prosecute for that. Well, we'll find out how that whole thing plays out if it actually comes to that. But as far as Donald Trump Jr. goes, not the smartest guy. And definitely, this is somebody that even Donald Trump thinks is dumb. And when you have that, when Donald Trump thinks you're stupid, you got some real problems. Okay. So let's move on. Now, David Brooks is a writer for the New York Times, and of course, he's written some pretty ridiculous articles. Now, why do I call them ridiculous? Well, look, David Brooks is a conservative. I don't agree with his ideas. I wouldn't say that he's ridiculous, except that in a lot of the articles he writes, his points seem to be very tone deaf. Like, he gets to some of the problems, yet he doesn't seem to take the extra step to realize what's actually creating those problems. Now, a great example here is one of his newest articles titled, "How We Are Ruining America." Lovely. Now, in it, he decides to talk about a book by Richard Reeves of the Brookings Institution called Dream Hoarders. Now, again, this talks about how, wealthier people, they can set things up for their kids, and they can, and that tends to leave out people who are lower class, who are not as advantaged. So he reads this book, and, the article, the book actually points out some interesting parts, like housing, for example. Now, he wrote that well-educated people tend to live in places like Portland, New York, and San Francisco that have housing and construction rules that keep the poor and less educated away from places with good schools and good job opportunities. So, again, this is from Reeves, right? So, he points out that home prices are incredibly high. That's very true, especially in those places. Now, for one, there's, of course, inflation. And then, two, we have an issue with wealthy foreign nationals buying up those homes, and then, which, of course, raises prices in those areas. Now, again, sometimes these are our foreign nationals. Sometimes these are our own very, very rich people buying up a lot of this property and trying to make some money off of it. Now, there's also a lack of affordable government subsidized housing in those areas for lower income people to live. Plus, you have the problem of wages not keeping up with the cost of living. So, look, there are some real issues. And so Brooks, in his article, he's like, yeah. So I guess that's a problem. Reeves points it out, but I don't necessarily agree that that's the real problem. But I'll get into that. Now, he also writes that Reeves' second structural barrier is the college admissions game. Educated parents live in neighborhoods with the best teachers. They top off their local public school budgets, and they benefit from legacy admissions rules, from admissions criteria that rewards kids who grow up with lots of enriching travel, and from unpaid internships and that lead to jobs. Now, again, Reeves points out some very real issues. Okay? Now, the big problem here, I think that I see in that is, one, education. The way we fund education, especially K through 12, which sets you up for college. Now, we fund that through property taxes, right? Therefore, the wealthier areas end up having a better school system than the not wealthy areas. Now, that makes it hard to attain a quality education. Now, in order to change that, we would have to change the funding model to something that actually does fund schools equally, whether or not you're from a poor area or rich area. So, great. Now, that's in an effort to make sure that schools in poor areas can still hire good teachers and, you know, have the funding for books and stuff and extracurricular activities, keep kids out of trouble, et cetera, et cetera. And again, the college admission stuff, well, that's also a problem that we could go and we could take a look at and we could actually fix. Now, as far as colleges, he says that with their admissions criteria, America's elite colleges sit atop gigantic mountains of privilege. And then with their scholarship policies, they salve their consciences by offering teeny stepladders for everyone else. Well, okay, again, good point. That's true. I have a solution: tuition-free education for everybody going to a public university. Then it might actually help with that. I think what surprises people from lower income groups is that you can actually get into places like Harvard, as long as they have good grades and, of course, money. Now, there's a lot of people who think, oh, no, Harvard, I'm poor. I grew up in a poor family. There's no way I can go to Harvard. So they don't try, or even if they get accepted, they can't afford the incredibly high cost it is to go to Harvard. Now, tuition-free university might actually solve that problem, because then everybody who ends up getting good grades can afford to get into these Ivy League schools. So those are some of the issues that are faced by working class people. Now, Brooks, he looks at all those arguments. He's read that book by Reeves, and he's like, yeah, but you know what? Structural problems, they're not really the actual real issue here. No. This is all about society. Quote, I've come to think that the structural barriers Reeves emphasizes are less important than the informal social barriers that segregate the lower 80%. That's weird. So, okay. So, all the evidence of structural problems in our system designed to keep poor people down is not enough to convince David Brooks that we need to change those systems. He doesn't think that it's structural at all. He thinks it's social. It's all the elite and their social barriers keeping people down. Now, the example that he's going to use is absolutely bonkers. Listen to this. He said, recently I took my friend with only a high school degree to lunch. Immediately, red flag. Yes, I took this plebeian to lunch with me. Aren't I such a great person? No. Insensitively, I led her into a gourmet sandwich shop. Suddenly, I saw her face freeze up as she was confronted with sandwiches named Padrino and Pomodoro, and ingredients like soppressata, cappucciolo, and a straiata baguette. Oh my God. I quickly asked her if she wanted to go somewhere else, and she anxiously nodded yes, and we ate Mexican. Hey, David, like, dude, you ever thought that maybe she was looking at the price tags of some of those gourmet sandwiches and was like, ooh, I'm not going to pay 20 bucks for a fucking sandwich. They're not cheap. They're not cheap. No, instead he thought that, oh, this person, since she's not educated, she's too dumb to figure out what a sandwich is. That she got intimidated by the names of sandwich meat because they were different. You know what? That is incredibly insulting to not only your friend, but for anybody with just a high school education. What, you think they can't understand sandwich meat? No, this is where you step in as a good friend and go, oh, by the way, that's what that is. That's actually a salami. Or that's actually a type of ham. It's just Italian. And they'd be like, oh, okay. Well, great. Or maybe she got heartburn. I don't know. She looks at that and goes, oh, that stuff is going to make me feel like shit later. I'm not interested. But of course that wouldn't explain how when they went to go and eat Mexican. But anyway, no, he thinks, and this uses this whole situation. He thinks that our rich hoity-toity culture is so confusing that somebody like her with a high school education, she's never going to get it. She's never going to understand. Again, 100% very, very insulting. Now, he writes, American upper middle class culture, where the opportunities are, is now laced with cultural signifiers that are completely illegible unless you happen to have grown up in this class. They play on the normal human fear of humiliation and exclusion. Their chief message is, you are not welcome here. Look, I don't agree. I think he's way off. For one, I know a lot of cultural, college-educated people who have no idea what a striata baguette is. I don't even know what that is. I could look it up. Hell, I'm the guy who can't figure out, like, which one's larger, Venti or Grande, when I go to Starbucks. Like, I'm just like, can you just have a small, medium, and large? What's with the Venti Grande shit? I can't figure out what's bigger. Just give me the bigger one. But I can learn. But again, here's what you do if you're David Brooks. You explain to your friend that, hey, all that sorpressata is, that is just an Italian salami. That's it. You know how I found that out? You look it up. You fucking Google that shit. Okay? Now, that's not hard. And again, you think your friend is too dumb to do that, to figure that out. Again, it's likely that she didn't want to pay 20 bucks for a sandwich. It's my guess that any place that serves capicola might be a bit overpriced. Or not. Who knows, right? Now he continues. Home and opportunity-rich areas, you got to understand the right bar techniques, sport the right baby carrier, have the right podcast, food truck, tea, wine, and Pilates tastes. Not to mention the right attitudes about David Foster Wallace, who the fuck is that, child rearing, gender norms, and intersectionality. Really? No, man. No, fuck that. No, I think in order to feel home in opportunity-rich areas, I think you must first have opportunity. See, what this is that you're blaming poor people for being poor because they don't fit in socially. But wait, it's not the fact that they don't fit in socially. It's the fact that they're poor and they can't afford a $20 fucking sandwich. Again, this is ridiculous. And the real problem is, again, you don't have means to fit into these areas, to live in these areas. There's a lack of affordable school options, a lack of healthcare, a lack of a wage that most people can live off of. And yes, a good high school and education is important, and as well as higher education. Why don't we expand that higher education to everybody who wants it? So he points out these problems, but he's like, they're not structural at all. They're social. It's the elite shutting everybody out. These upper middle class elites. It says nothing about the rich, who are completely cut off from everybody else. He just says, no, it's just a social problem. So they're not doing well. They're not, able to fit in because they just don't understand. No, it's because they're poor. Instead, he says, the educated class has built an ever more intricate net to cradle us in and ease everyone else out. It's not really the prices that ensure 80% of your co-shoppers at Whole Foods are comfortably also college grads. It's the cultural codes. No, I'm pretty sure it's the price. And also, I do gotta note that Whole Foods isn't everywhere. Okay? Most of the country probably doesn't know what Whole Foods is because they probably never shop there because it doesn't exist in your area. Okay? I mean, it's the same reason that I can't shop at a Piggly Wiggly. Why? I'm not in the South. That's where they're at. Now, I'm not going to go and blame their social norms for that. Oh, those elite Southern people shopping at Piggly Wiggly. No, I'm not going to blame that. It just doesn't exist there. Okay? You're not going to blame social norms for that. And it's stupid to blame social norms for not everybody's shopping at Whole Foods. Yeah, maybe they don't like Whole Foods. Maybe they don't like how expensive it is. Who knows? Now, finally, he says, status rules are partly about collusion. about attracting educated people to your circle, tightening the bonds between you and erecting shields against everyone else. Dude, maybe in your position, dude. We in the educated class have created barriers to mobility that are more devastating than being invisible. The rest of America can't name them, can't understand them. They just know they're there. What a load of bullshit. This is absolutely ridiculous. No, the real issue here for people like David Brooks is that he's not interested in solving the systemic problems. Likely because that would involve doing progressive policy that would end up taxing him more and putting more government investments into things like education and healthcare. This is the thing, right? This doesn't fit in with his conservative viewpoints. So what he does is like, well, obviously I don't want to do anything policy-wise that's going to raise my taxes. So instead, I'm just going to blame social norms. No, they can't. But see, poor people can't fit in, not because they don't have money to spend at our ridiculously expensive stores and live in our ridiculously expensive neighborhoods. It's because they can't fit in socially. This is ignoring the glaring economic inequalities and lack of opportunities for those living in lower socioeconomic conditions. That's all this is. It's trying to blame. That's it. This is classic conservatism. Blaming elite culture while doing nothing to address the actual problem with the elites. Their lack of realizing and wanting to fix the systemic factors involved in the continuation of actual poverty. Look, I know, like, some of the stuff he writes made a little bit of sense. And I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, the elites are fucking hoity-toity. Who wants to hang around them anyway? But at the same time, it's like, but wait a minute. We all want to be in that position of upper middle class. That's what we want. We want to make enough money but we need opportunity, and we don't have that. And David Brooks talking only about the social stuff and not really engaging, not really trying to fix the problem of the systemic factors is just continuing the problem. It's just putting the blame on something that, well, I mean, on us because of our elite, social norms, instead of the actual things that would fix the system. And so, ridiculous article. I think he's tone deaf. At least he admits he's out of touch, but he just doesn't understand how. Okay, anyway. I'm going to go before I rant more on this, because we got more stories to go. Now, Republicans continue to try and push their disastrous Obamacare repeal bill without much success, mind you. Many of them are actually also trying to cash in on health insurance company stocks. Now, last week, Lee Fong of The Intercept reported that Representative Mike Conway, a Texas Republican and member of Speaker Paul Ryan's leadership team, had decided during the middle of all this, the healthcare repeal stuff in the Senate, he was going to add a health insurance company to his stock portfolio. Oh, interesting. Now, according to them, an account owned by Conway's wife made 2 purchases of United Health stock worth as much as $30,000. On March 24th, the day the legislation advanced in the House Rules Committee, according to disclosures. Well, that's curious timing. Now, the exact value of Conway's investment is not clear, given that congressional ethics forms only show a range of amounts, and Conway's office did not respond to a request for comment. So, very, very curious indeed. Now, so during a health insurance repeal discussion that would massively benefit health insurance companies, his family decides, hey, let's do some health insurance stocks. I wonder why they would do that. Could it be because the health insurance companies, their stock would go up during this discussion or after this bill would pass? That's very strange. Let's look into that. Now, let's see. According to a CNBC report from the end of June, healthcare stocks have actually been on a tear as investors brace for the unveiling of the Senate's healthcare bill, which aims at repealing and replacing Obamacare. And United Health specifically, where Mr. Conaway had invested, has gained nearly 7% of value since March 24th. Could it be that's because, again, this healthcare bill is a huge giveaway to the rich and health insurance companies, and they can make more profit? Now, Conaway wasn't the only guy. As the healthcare system overhaul advanced last month, on the other side of Capitol Hill, Republican Senator James Inhofe of Oklahoma purchased between $50,000 and $100,000 in United Health stock. Again, must be a coincidence, right? I mean, they're just in the middle of pushing a healthcare repeal bill that will massively benefit the companies themselves, and they just happen to buy stock in these companies. What a coincidence! At least that's what they're saying. So let's go to Senator Inhofe and his spokesman, Nicole Hague. Now, she says Senator Inhofe has a financial advisor who makes transactions on his behalf, and then these transactions are disclosed as required by the Stock Act. The transaction you reference was routine and made without the senator's prior knowledge or consultation, she said in an interview with The Intercept. Sure. And I'm also Santa Claus. Really? No, see, look, here's the issue, right? He's got to know. He's got to know. His wife runs it. And his wife's not going to come home and, hey, honey, did you invest in any companies while I was gone? No, can't tell you. We're going to violate the Stock Act. No, of course they do. Come on. Look, this is clearly an example of insider trading. I mean, here you have members of Congress and their staff buying and selling stock while using privileged information. This information, of course, being, hey, I know what changes are going to happen, and I know how they're going to impact the markets through rules and regulations that we're debating right now. So since I know all this information, I know that I can expect some changes on my financial, on my stocks and stuff, my finances. Now, knowing that, of course, you or someone who works for you will end up knowing when to buy or sell certain stocks. That is super problematic. And the issue, of course, look, this is not a new issue. It's been around for a while, but it was finally highlighted at least in some media, when Health and Human Services Secretary Tom Price was revealed to have bought shares in Innate Immunotherapeutics. Now, that is, of course, an obscure Australian biotech firm. Now, what makes it weird is he was also legislating on policies that would impact the firm. So he's legislating on these policies. It's like, well, we know it's going to positively impact this firm, so I'm going to buy a whole bunch of shares in it. Now, Fong writes, the stock advice had been passed to Price from Representative Chris Collins, a board member for Innate Immunotherapeutics, and was shared with a number of other GOP lawmakers who also invested in the firm. Conaway, records show, bought shares in the company a week after Price. Now, Conaway serves as a GOP deputy whip in the House, and he has a long record of investing in firms that happen to coincide with his official duties. Politico also reported that Conaway's wife purchased stock in a nuclear firm just after he sponsored a bill to deal with nuclear waste storage in his district. That firm stood to directly benefit from this legislation. Now, look, I don't know, you guys, is there corruption here or something? Do you see any corruption? I can't tell. I can't tell. At least if I were a member of Congress, I wouldn't be able to tell, because obviously right now they can't tell because they're not doing anything about it at all. Look, no member of Congress should be able to financially benefit from their legislative decisions. That needs to be a law because it's an obvious conflict of interest. Now, they tried to make a law after 2008. Multiple lawmakers from both parties had rearranged their financial portfolios to avoid heavy potential losses. In response to that, these lawmakers, who had used confidential information to make these special trades to save their portfolios, were obviously found to do this. And let me give an example of who one of them was. It was Spencer Baucus, who used confidential meetings about the unfolding bank crisis to make special trades designed to increase in value as the stock market had went down. Now, after that whole thing happened, Congress was like, okay, we do have to do something about this because it's really bad. So they passed the Stock Act. Originally, the Stock Act's fairly strong. And then they watered it down. They managed to repeal parts of it. And even after all of that, the House of Representatives has fought efforts to enforce the law, especially after the Securities and Exchange Commission attempted to investigate one congressional staffer accused of passing healthcare information to a set of hedge funds. So this is a problem that has not been solved. This is still going on, and it's a serious problem. Again, I don't think that a congressman should be able to invest in something that they have the power to affect. Say what you will about that, that shouldn't be a controversial opinion. If you don't set up a system that prevents conflicts of interest and insider trading, then guess what you're going to get? You're going to get insider trading. Or even if you have a system and you don't enforce that law, well then you're just going to send a message to people like, yeah, it's technically on the books, but you're not going to get in trouble for it. So have at it, man. Enjoy. Go do your insider trading with knowledge that you have in order to make a buck. Knowledge, special knowledge that nobody else has, based on the legislation that you're doing. Can you not see that this is wrong? Our bought shills in Congress don't. And a lot of them happen to be Republicans, but of course there are Democrats as well. So, look, the Stock Act, not nearly enough, and it continues to get violated over and over again. And it's very doubtful this Congress, under Donald Trump, is going to vote for something even stronger, because they're wading in a cesspool of corruption. So, why is it worth reporting then? Well, because for now, just so you know, right? The reason that we're bringing this to you is so you actually know. And so you're actually aware of what this repeal and replace bill actually entails. This is a good example of another way congressmen personally benefit from a legislation that is likely going to harm you and help them. And look, this bill hurts you, it hurts regular people in so many different ways. This is just another way that these congressmen will personally benefit from this. And so I want you all to remember. I want you all to remember this when the elections come in 2018. Remember who these people are, especially if you live in these areas with Jim Inhofe, and you remember how much you hate this corruption, how much you wanted to drain the swamp. Because these people, Conaway, they're living in it. Okay, one more story for you guys. Now, Republicans in Arkansas have just passed their own form of Sharia law by forcing women to essentially have to tell men that they planned on getting an abortion. Now, a recently passed bill, HB 1566, according to the Huffington Post, is a provision under the Arkansas Final Disposition Rights Act of 2009. Now, it states that in a matter of a person's death, family members have to agree on what to do with the deceased person's body. I think that's a little bit intrusive. Hey, man, we're passing a law to make sure that you all have to agree on what to do with somebody's body. Again, weirdly intrusive. But there's, I think, a purpose to this. And it gets to 1566. Because it actually includes aborted fetuses into that act. Now, that means essentially the mother and the father of the fetus will have to agree on what to do with the fetal remains. Now, that requires, of course, the woman having to tell whoever impregnated her that she has to get an abortion, or that she's planning on having an abortion. And then they both have to agree on what to do with the remains. Now, what happens if there's no agreement? What happens if you can't agree with the remains? Are you no longer allowed to get an abortion? I don't know. That seems like, look, if it looks like they can't agree, they're not allowed to get an abortion. I don't know the specifics of this. But it seems like a situation like that could happen. Now, not only that, but this law would obviously apply to women impregnated by abusive partners and those impregnated through rape and sexual assault. Now, for girls under 18, of course, the decision of what to do with the fetal remains will be deferred to parents or guardians. That's fine. Look, this is a bit problematic. Basically, the state of Arkansas is saying you can't get your abortion without going through this extra hoop we just invented. And so you have to tell your partner, husband, boyfriend, one night stand, rapist, or whatever, molester, that you plan on getting an abortion, and then you both have to work together to come up with a plan to deal with the remains. Again, super intrusive. They're saying, no. It's not about stopping abortion. No. All we're doing is we're just putting some fetal tissue requirements into a law. That's all. Nobody's infringing on your right to an abortion. That's fine. You could technically still get one, even though we really don't want you to here in Arkansas. But a barrier is a barrier. Hey, man, we know what you're doing. Do you think this is going to stop all abortions? No. Do you think that making a woman ask her rapist in the most extreme circumstance what to do with the fetus? No. What you're doing is you are further victimizing women. That's what this is going. Look, if you want less abortions, great, me too. How about we make it easier for access to birth control and comprehensive sex ed? Those have been proven to reduce pregnancy and abortion. How about we stop trying to shut down Planned Parenthood, which provides free contraception, as well as many other things? But Jeff, you don't understand. Planned Parenthood, they do abortions. That your taxpayer money is going to abortions. No, it's not. Thanks to the Hyde Amendment, which says that no public money, no taxpayer money can go to abortions at all. So look, let me throw some data out here, which sort of counters the Planned Parenthood causes more women to get abortions narrative. That's the fact that they offer more abortions. People are like, oh my God, that means women are going to get more abortions. That's bad. We don't want that. Okay, well, let's look at what happened when Texas defunded Planned Parenthood. According to a new study based on research from Texas A&M, conducted by economics professor Annalisa Packham, showed that in the first 3 years after Texas Republicans slashed the family planning budget in 2011 and shut down more than 80 women's health clinics, the abortion rate among teenagers in the state rose 3% over what it would have had the clinics remained open. The greatest rises in abortion rates occurred in rural areas where access to affordable family planning was already scarce. For example, in Gregg County, where the local health center lost 60% of its family planning funding, the abortion rate increased by 191% between 2012 and 2014. Wait a minute. So they cut access to family planning, and they got more abortions. Maybe family planning helps prevent abortions by preventing unplanned pregnancies. That would make sense, wouldn't it? Now, the Austin American-Statesman also reported that at least 5 counties in East Texas also saw considerable increases in abortions over that 2-year period. So what you had as an effect of cutting family planning, including Planned Parenthood, you ended up either having more abortions or more teen pregnancies and having women having kids that they can't afford. So the opposite of what you wanted to happen happened. Now, the Arkansas bill was not going to end abortions. It's not. Simple as that. It just makes it more difficult to access what is a constitutionally protected right. So, now, the thing is that the way that they're trying to end abortion isn't it all rooted into what actually works to reduce abortion? What this turns out, what this really entails is just giving men more control of a woman. That's it. Now, if you're pro-life, you would actually want to support, ending abortion by making sure that women have access to family planning. So that if they do have a child, they can do it on their own terms and actually have the finances to pay for it. So they wouldn't have to consider abortion through financial means or because of financial means. Now, look, women who have abortions, I think a lot of them that do it, they don't do it because they like having abortions or because they really want to. It's a difficult decision. It's because either they never wanted a child, or they had gotten raped or molested, or they decided that, hey man, we just can't handle it financially. It's going to be too much of a strain on our budget. We can't afford it. So those are mainly the reasons women get abortions. How about instead of making it harder to get one, how about we mitigate those reasons that women choose to have abortions in the first place? Now, to some, of course, on the pro-life side, or the supposed pro-life side, it's not about that. It's actually about more control. It's actually about religion. It's making sure to press upon people Christianity. I'll get news for you. The Bible actually supports abortion and tells you how to do it. If your wife is cheating. Of course, it's all from the man's perspective. It's not about doing what it... Because, again, if you were in favor of ending abortions, then you would actually make sure that the women have a lesser chance of getting pregnant in the first place. And we've already figured out ways to do that, to reduce the unintended pregnancy rate. We already know what works. They already know what works, and they refuse to do it because it's not about being pro-life. It's all about being pro-birth. It's all about being pro-religion. And it's all about, of course, making sure that they deny women a choice over their own bodies. Okay. That's it. That's all I got for you today. Thanks for going around the nation with me today. Thank you to the patrons, of course, who continue to fund independent progressive media. Thank you, everybody at home, for watching. Thank you for sharing, liking, and sharing this this live stream. Check out the videos. They'll be posted up later tonight if you missed any part of the show. All right, everybody. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation.